A very good morning to one and all present here. Welcome you all on behalf of Mechanical Engineering Department of Universal Engineering College for the fourth international webinar series conducted by Universal Engineering College. And this time it's on the topic Essential Technologies and Career Opportunities in Mechanical Engineering. Today, as speaker, we have Mr. Arun Ashok, who's the technical head in Synergy with Synergy Solutions. So welcome you, sir, once again on behalf of our college as well as the Mechanical Engineering Department.
Thank you, Ashwati.
Yeah. So before I hand over to the speaker of the day, let me give you all a brief intro of our speaker. Mr. Arun Ashok has 14 plus years of leadership experience in IT services, strategic consulting, business analysis, project management, and RPA initiatives across automotive, BFSI, consumer electronics, heavy industries, manufacturing and mining, and transportation domains. Over the years, he has transitioned from building robot teach pendants and programming them to building RPA bots in the digital world. Arun began his stint with Digital Marketing Center of Excellence in TCS. He led multiple CAD, CAM, PLM, SCADA automation programs, robotics, and simulation projects for Asia Pacific, US, Indian, and Australian clients. In his current stint with Synergy, he leads IT application development and automation teams in tackling challenging project requirements in BFSI sector. Mr. Arun completed his BTech in Production Engineering from Government Engineering College, Thrissur. He has advanced diploma in manufacturing and PG diploma in marketing. He holds PMP, ITIL, and Agile certifications, which are globally recognized by business leaders and project managers across all industrial verticals. That's it about our speaker of the day. Now over to you, sir. Welcome once again.
Sure. At the onset, I would like to congratulate Universal Engineering College for conducting this international webinar series on essential technologies and career opportunities in mechanical engineering. I would like to thank Dr. Joe Sir, Principal of UEC, Francis Sir, HOD of Mechanical Department, and Vimal Sir, Faculty Member of Mechanical Department for inviting me to this webinar as a speaker. I also like to thank each and every one of you who have taken time to join us today on Saturday. And I wish you all to stay safe, healthy, and immune during these COVID times. As they say, no one is safe until everyone is safe. So let's hope for the best and ensure that we take all the necessary measures. With that, I move on to the topic. What ensures you a job in post-COVID environment? Sure. So for the day, I first wanted to set the expectations. I look forward to quickly taking you through the impact of COVID, what kind of disruption it has brought into the business scenario, and how this can be a game changer. I also look forward to giving you an economic view of why this is impacting business and what are the large-scale implications. I would be moving on to what the recruiter would be looking at from a candidate. So this is generic and is applicable to all graduates. What kind of skills should you be building? What should be your focus areas? And then the trends. What are the current trends and what are the emerging trends? And specifically for mechanical engineers, what kind of opportunities does these promise in the future? So it's sort of expectation setting. In case you want any other areas to clarify, feel free to put in your queries in the chat window, and either during the session or after the session, we shall see how best we can address it. So for now, these are the items which I thought would be relevant to you and wanted to take you through. So with that, I am moving on to the first element on COVID, the disruptor. Well, I'm sure over the months you would have heard about COVID to a greater extent, how it has disrupted the normal working scenarios, the normal way of life. And this is something which is unprecedented. By unprecedented, what I mean to say is that none of us have seen this happening, throughout our lifetimes. And I think probably this is something which is new to the entire human race. Because even when the world wars happened or any other major international event happened, we did not have, close to 180 plus countries out of the total 195 countries getting impacted and taking measures to see how best this can be contained. So that is the reason why, I'm calling it as unprecedented. And most importantly, this has been highly disruptive. So the normal flow of life, the way we have been doing business, transacting, interacting at our personal, social, economic, political, in fact, almost all walks of life have been impacted because of this. But what you also need to keep in mind is that this has accelerated digitization, automation, and innovation. Well, for the past 4 to 5 years, almost all the business heads had digitization as one of their main key items in their agenda or as a part of their strategy. But none of them have been successful. So once COVID came in, then automatically everybody realized the importance of digitization. People started understanding that, okay, automation is a necessity to ensure that our businesses are progressing normally. So that's another turning point. Along with this, we also find that there is immense thrust on innovation, because now there are new challenges, new avenues, being thrown up, and almost all the businesses, whether they have been established, whether they are new to the market, whether they are larger players or they are of smaller scale, irrespective of their size, where they operate, they have to innovate. And no matter what the domain is, they still have to see how can they attract their customers and retain their existing employees. That's a point which is coming up next. So they have to evolve and come up with new ways by which they can, excite their customers and ensure that they retain the business. This calls forth new waves of, tools, software, and modes and channels in which we are, doing business, which we have not probably exposed or we never had to look into during the ordinary scenarios. Of course, remote working, remote learning has been the current trend for these many months. Earlier, we had big physical offices. Now they are no longer required. Companies have realized that even without, offices, without office space, they could still operate, and they have been doing it for these many months. Few companies have gone ahead the extra step and mentioned that they would continue the way we are operating now, even once things come back to normalcy. And few of the companies have gone ahead and extended this time frame not until the end of this year, but even to the next year, mentioning that their employees could work from home and need not come to office unless it is really absolutely essential. Real estate price stabilization. A couple of months before, if you would have seen the prices were pretty high even in tier 1 cities. Now they have been automatically, the corrections have taken and it is being stabilized. Virtual education. Well, I believe almost everybody, right from kindergarten to even those who are working, are now connected over the net for their ongoing education process. So you do have a lot of massive online open courses which you could take up. So these have got a new thrust. And coupled with that, the education prices, which were exceedingly high owing to physical presence, have completely been moved. So this is something which is definitely going to impact even once COVID retreats. So overall, if you look at it, you find that this disruption is happening across the globe, across various domains. And these are few of the aspects which are going to stay even once we have contained COVID. I also would like to call it the game changer. Reason being, this gives us great opportunity, especially for Indian economy to grow. Indigenous businesses, not only in India, but in almost all these countries, will be thriving, and there will be more focus to ensure that at least critical industries or say something like medical, then defense, are all given further boost within the respective countries. Reduced fuel prices, because now the prices for the fuels have come down drastically. And as per the calculations, if the price of the fuel is being brought down, say even by $1, the impact on your import, the money which you require for that, is impacted between 2,900 to 3,400 crores. So that's a huge money which we're talking about. And coupled with this, it is not just $1. It is more than $15 to $20 which is being reduced. That's a huge reduction which you see. And all the industries which are dependent on fuel, wherein there is a direct impact, would see the benefit because of this. Well, apart from this, the crime rate has dropped, accidents have reduced, other disease transmissions have reduced, because now majority of the people are either self-isolated or in quarantine, and because of it, the interactions are lesser, and because of the social distancing, we find that the disease transmissions have also reduced, except for COVID, which is still to be contained. Apart from that, on a personal front, we find that there is more time to bond with the family, improved personal hygiene, reduced impulse purchases, and that implies more purchasing power and investment options, which means people have at least surplus money or whatever they have factored to address COVID-related situations would become purchasing power once COVID retreats and the business returns to normalcy. Less greenhouse effect. You will not have that much pollution coming in. Also, the manufacturing has correspondingly adjusted their supply based on the demand. So all these lead to less greenhouse effect, less global warming. Well, this is something which is personal to me. I like this very much. Time to hone your indoor hobbies and skills. So if you would want to pick up any skills which would help you, it could be as simple as learning a foreign language. It could be as simple as learning a different field which you have not been used to. Well, this is the ideal time. More time on streaming data. Yes. So that's another observation, wherein people have been using their devices, be it laptop or mobile, for streaming data. It could be through YouTube or WhatsApp videos or Facebook, whichever be the application it is. The time spent on these have drastically increased. Even children are spending more time on their mobile devices. Maybe 7-8 months before, the instructions which all parents will be giving their children would be not to use mobile phones, that until you are grown up, you should not be using it. Now that has changed. Almost all children have either a mobile phone or a laptop to at least attend their classes. To see the way things have changed. In very few months, we are, be it parents or elders, have to go back and tell the children that no, it's okay, now you can use it. So that is the impact which COVID has created. There is a detoxifying effect on nature. Nature is recuperating and healing from whatever atrocities it has been going through. And the cleansing process is happening now. Wildlife is also flourishing. So on one side, I completely understand. My heart goes out to all those people who are impacted with COVID. But on the other side, there are immense benefits also, which a prudent entrepreneur or a prudent person who carefully watches the situations and adapts need to take into account. So I've just quickly given you here an overview of these areas which you need to keep in mind when we speak about COVID. I'm jumping into a quick high-level overview of economy. So we could start from the left-hand side, consumer, and I will explain what is the impact of it on the raw materials. So here you find that an ordinary consumer, he goes to a shop. It can be a small shop or a retail shop next door, wherein you go and buy, say, grocery. The retailer will sell it to you, and he would have already stocked based on certain trends which he has seen. He would have stocked sufficient grocery. He gets the grocery from the distributor and the wholesaler. They would have also stocked these based on the demand patterns. And now the manufacturer, especially in the case of processed food items, or be it any other items, say if it is a soap, again, it needs to be manufactured. So the manufacturer will start increasing the manufacturing rate or decreasing the manufacturing rate based on the demand from the distributors and the wholesalers. And manufacturer in turn raises order to his supplier. Say, for example, if we are dealing with discussing about a soap manufacturing company, they would need oil and a lot of other items. So these would be provided by the suppliers. And the suppliers would now start getting lower orders, since manufacturer would have started reducing the volumes at which they produce goods. And that implies the demand from the supplier for that particular raw material decreases. So this is a high-level view. Just to quickly take you through what is the impact of the consumer on the raw materials for manufacturing a particular product. Now I will show you the impact at a high level, what is happening currently in market for majority of the products. There are variations also though. So a low customer demand implies lower sales for both the retailers, distributors, and the wholesalers. This implies there is low purchase orders being raised from the distributors and wholesalers on the manufacturer. Manufacturer will correspondingly reduce his production rate to ensure that his inventory is being consumed. And that internally implies there would be lower job opportunities across the cycle, be it at retailer end, at distributors, wholesalers, or manufacturers end. or for that matter, even at the supplier's end, because manufacturer in turn will be, raising lower orders to the supplier. Overall, if you see, my point of focus is here. The demand is, getting reduced for that particular raw material. Now, there are exceptions as we see clearly. Say, for example, sanitizers, the orders have actually shot up. So I just want to give you a typical overview of what is the implication of all the entities which is involved, even in a very simple purchase cycle of, say, soap or any other product. Now, let us see a quick view of which businesses are hit by COVID. Of course, you have the aviation sector, which is largely impacted because of this. Already, aviation sector was going through a lot of other crises. Now, with COVID, definitely it has taken a back step. In few countries, domestic flights are still propelling and giving a larger contribution towards the revenues of these airlines companies, but international flights is yet to pick up. And even if it kickstarts, people would not be willing to travel as much they used to earlier. So this is one area which is impacted, and it would take some time to recover. But definitely, all these sectors, what I'm going to cover here, would be recovering and would be promising more growth once COVID retreats. Automotive is another segment which contributes largely to the manufacturing output of majority of the countries. And that has taken hit because you do not see too many people traveling. Probably everybody would have withhold their intent to purchase new vehicles. So because of this, as please keep in mind the earlier cyclic view which I have shown you. So because of this, there is demand reduction, and naturally the respective companies would alter their supply. Next, again, heavy industries. These are largely impacted for now, and they have also done the supply demand related corrections. Oil and gas is again hit. So we have discussed this, but the fuel prices are reduced. Still, this industry is hit. Mining is hit. So even companies like Coal India and a lot of other mining companies are going through this grill and trying to see what best they could do. Shipping and transportation, yes, definitely. So shipping is reviving once COVID retreats, but definitely, as I said, globally the demand patterns are impacted. So all these are the industries which are impacted. There are many other, but I'm moving on to the businesses which have also shot up during the COVID-19 time frame. Pharmaceuticals. The pharmaceuticals industries have picked up, and this implies that even now there is demand for mechanical engineers, for pharmacists, for a lot of people who are closely associated with the healthcare industry. Of course, doctors are doing a great job. The hospital-related personnel are doing a great job. But this is one industry which has definitely shot up. You do have IT. We have already discussed a few of the points wherein IT sector is still booming. Telecom, yes, we are all connected thanks to good broadband and connection. So telecom sector is still improving. E-commerce. So there has been a strategic shift. So earlier I mentioned about the digitization speed, which the companies are catching up now, which the CTOs and CIOs have not been able to ensure for the past 45 years. In fact, e-commerce has also picked up. So India is fortunately well poised We have unified payment interfaces and various mechanisms. In fact, the earlier drive wherein we had moved from cash-based economy to digitized payments have definitely benefited us. Otherwise, it would have been really difficult for us to quickly adjust to this kind of a situation wherein we have to stay home and cannot go and visit. So online payments for making the business transactions have definitely helped, and it is also good. FMCG sector. Well, I just took you through a supply chain view of one product. It is a fast-moving consumer good product, so which we discussed. Here, what is happening is that during the lockdowns, probably even if there is a cyclic impact, once the lockdowns are halted, and then once business resumes, automatically the consumption pattern is also increasing. So FMCG, though it is cyclic in nature, it is booming. You have the paint industry and a lot of other allied industries, as I mentioned, which is directly linked to the crude oil booming because of the reduction in the pricing. BFSI segment, because of the transactions, the UPI, and almost all the implications. This is another sector which is also booming now. Online streaming. We have already discussed this. You do have children also joining the boat, and it's really interesting to see how few of the countries are coping up. Few of the European countries wherein they are seeing impact on the broadbands. In India, majority of the places, fortunately, our broadband connections have been very stable and very cheap, and we have been able to handle the load. Of course, fitness at home. When I say fitness at home, there are a lot of apps and a lot of associated digital products which helps you stay fit at home, which has boomed during this time frame. So there would be many. This is not an exhaustive list. Both the sectoral views which I have just shown you. It is an indication that you will have to see which sector is booming and see how you need to be equipped to handle jobs in these particular sectors. Now, today it might be science sector. Maybe 10 months down the lane, it might be a different sector. But it depends on what kind of core skills you have, what is your domain know-how, and what are your transferable skills, portable skills, with which you can ensure that your career is not much impacted. We'll get on to the transferable skills very soon. Prior to that, I wanted to take a look at the GDP, gross domestic product of various countries, just to give you a view of what is happening globally across the years. So this is the 10-year data which I'm showing here. You do have the bottom one, which is I'm referring to this blue, which represents agriculture. This is for the industry, and this represents the service sector. So when I say service sector, it is a mix of various services across. So we'll get into a few of those examples subsequently. The area of interest which you need to focus here is the value was 43 percentage contribution in 2009. That has increased to 53.9 percentage, almost 10 percentage increase around 10-year time frame. Please keep in mind, I'm just showing this value in percentage. If you convert it into actual values for the respective countries, considering the GDP of the respective years, this value is going to be very huge. And if you see, the industry sector has slightly reduced. The agricultural sector has also slightly reduced. But sorry for that, yeah. But the services sector is increasing. Now I'm showing here for China. The same applies for US and India. So the trend is what you need to look into. The services segment is increasing. And the same applies in India's case also. So from 45% to around 49%, services sector is booming. And the other two sectors, the primary sector, agricultural sector, and the secondary industrial sector, they have been declining. And this trend is going to continue also. Now, what this implies to you when you are looking for jobs, we will, get onto that point very soon. What is so great about India's service sector? That's a good, point to look into this at this juncture. Number one, India's emergence as a digital superpower, coupled with the ITES, that is IT-enabled services, fintechs, UPIs, and almost all the services which is booming in a digitized world. I think we are there. Next is with respect to the telecom and broadband, as I just mentioned, it has improved over the years. And though the telecom industry has been going through a lot of issues with respect to various, legislation and pricing related implications, they've been doing great job, to date, and they are cheap too compared to other developed countries. And 5G might also be coming up very soon to manage, more load. Food and delivery sector, as again, that's a booming, scenario. You have your courier services, health services, education services. There are so many services which I had earlier mentioned, which are contributing. Even there are manufacturing and mechanical related services which are also on a growth trend, as we had just seen. So though the secondary sector, which is the industry, is impacted, as we saw for the GDP for all the three countries, the services sector has been growing. So there are a few more areas which we need to keep in mind. Now, China has been exporting 6 times than India. I've got an opportunity to interact with my client base across the globe, from Australia to North America. One common thing which I have seen when I've been there is that Chinese products were always there at various time frames throughout the last decade when I've been interacting with my clientele. And their products were there in almost all these geographies. If India need to catch up, we will have to improve our export rates at 6 times faster. And once we can do that on a consistent basis, then and only then we can, surpass China. But under the current scenario with the COVID-related implications, there is a short-term and intermediate impact wherein India can really capitalize and see how best it can grow. So there is a lot of scope for India here. In fact, US have already come back and mentioned that they would indigenously focus on their industry sector to ensure that medical supply for key items, defense sector related components, etc., are being done within the country. And I'm sure almost all the countries will be following the same suit and would promote indigenization. So what India needs to focus is on first indigenization, wherein within the country we grow our capabilities, and then ensure that we have respective quality checks in place so that we can export these to other countries which cannot quickly increase the scale. So fortunately, under the given situation, India has been largest exporter for medicines for a lot of countries, and in a way we have been able to manage the situations, and with a little bit of focus and with some more legislations in place, we could do a better job like countries the United States and Singapore is doing. to further promote indigenization under the current scenarios. Well, ours is definitely one of the biggest consumer markets globally. Manufacturing would be both, domestic as well as export oriented. Post-COVID, definitely focus would be, in fact, it has already started, the focus towards Atmanirbhar Bharat and for indigenous development. And this is going to get further boost after COVID retreats. All these imply that there are humongous opportunities which would be coming up in your way as engineers. And moving on to what skill sets a recruiter would be looking at. So being a recruiter and understanding what is the need of the industry, there are few skill sets which you would definitely be looking at the college pass outs. And I thought this is something which you should be aware of, so that you have sufficient time to focus on these areas if you are prospects or if you have newly joined your courses. And if you are towards your third year or fourth year or have passed out, please ensure that you keep an eye on these skills, because they are equally important like your core skills. Of course, I'm considering it as the baseline that you are focusing on your core skills, on your respective disciplines. And over and above, first and foremost, problem solvers. All engineers, I consider them to be problem solvers. So they should be able to understand the respective domain-related problem, the challenge what the business and the people are facing, and see what are the alternatives, do the viability, the feasibility of them from financial, technical aspects, and then come up with solutions. So that's the bottom line, when it comes to engineers and technocrats. They should be great problem solvers. Now, next point which I would want to highlight is proven ability to learn and adapt. If you see, I've underlined the word proven. What I mean to say here is, when I've been, conducting interviews also, almost all the members who have been participating in the interviews, and referring to the candidates, would always tell that, yeah, we are ready to try this, we are willing to take this up, we can do this, we will put in our best. The point which any interviewer is looking at is, what have you already done, so that we have sufficient evidence to know that you have put in sufficient effort in these areas, in these domains, or in these areas which you are passionate about. It could be through additional certifications. It could be through your college grades on specific subjects if you are very focused on that. But that alone will not be sufficient, as I'm about to take you through in a couple of slides going forward. The key note here is it should be proven. Either it should be through your additional certifications or courses which you could take up during these time frames, or it could be through being an apprentice or internship, whichever option is working well for you. But it should be backed by evidence, and most importantly, you should have the ability to quickly learn and adapt. It should not be a case when if somebody asks you, okay, you know this particular industry, or what is your understanding, and then you say that you are completely clueless about it, but you are willing to learn. The reason being, there are so many candidates outside there who are looking for job opportunities, and there is no differentiator between you and another candidate who is going to come next. So you should be in a position to clearly articulate and prove that you have already put in sufficient effort in these directions. You have already done your homework, and that you have reached up to this stage wherein you stand apart. So if you can do so, then I believe sky is your limit, not just now, but throughout your career phase. Because continuous learning is definitely going to be a part of the lifestyle at which we are moving forward. I'm just taking a step back here and keeping you posted, because earlier probably you would have been getting this push from your parents or colleagues or teachers telling that, okay, first you pass the 10th, then probably things would be smooth for a while. Then 12th, yes, things would be smooth for a while. Then you have your entrance exams. Again, after that, things would be chilled. Not exactly. Life, the way I look at it, is a series of escalators, and there are walls. Each time when a wall comes in front of you, you will have to put an effort to jump and cross it. It can be like your board exams for 10th, 12th, your engineering, your masters, probably your PhD, PhDs, PGs, etc. What I mean to say is, each time when you jump a wall, you will find an escalator which will automatically take you to a next level. You will still hit the next wall until you put in sufficient effort to jump and to conquer that wall. And your growth in your lifetime depends on how many times you can, learn, adapt, and jump across these walls. Because the escalator is definitely going to do its job as long as you keep, jumping across these walls. Okay, so coming back to our focus areas, verbal and written communication, very important skill set. As engineers, we need to keep in mind that we will have to lead a lot of other employees at some stage in our career. It might be probably in 1 or 2 years, it can be probably in 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. But invariably, your verbal and written communication is very important. Now, keep in mind, this is not important only for the leaders. This is also important for you to be effective as a team player. A very simple example, your engineering drawings, if they are not correctly marked, if they do not give you the right dimensions, then you are not, communicating properly. So your written and verbal communication is equally important. So this is the ideal time frame for you to prep up to ensure that your language is improved. So say, for example, if you have been learning in Malayalam medium, and if you think that by just an engineering degree, you're going to get a job, no. So I'm giving you a heads up right away. Please put an additional effort apart from your curriculum to ensure that your verbal and written communication is improved, so that once the market is open, you stand a better chance. And not only for your first job, but throughout your career. Because especially during these time frames when we are remotely operating, assume that if your verbal communication is not good, then how do you communicate and intimate others? Because to greater extent, we have all been saying that non-verbal communication accounts for 65% of the communication, and verbal is probably only 35%. But during these time frames, we cannot even see each other except for probably a couple of video conferencing sessions. But otherwise, it is all through your written communication or maybe a quick call, which is verbal in nature. So if you do not improve on these areas, then definitely there will be others, either from your same domains or from other domains, would be surpassing you. So this is very important. And most importantly, as a recruiter would not want you to, would not want to correct your, grammar, spelling mistakes, and all those in each of the communication which you're going to send. Then it violates your first rule of being problem solvers. You are going to be problem creators than problem solvers. If your boss or his boss needs to keep correcting you on your verbal and email communication. So please ensure that you take adequate steps to improve on these areas. Listening and ability to follow instructions. Wonderful. Again, a very key point here, your ability to listen. There is a difference between listening and hearing. Hearing is you passively just hear. Listening is after understanding what is being mentioned, you probably ask question and get things clarified so that you have a very good understanding of what needs to be done. Next is the ability to follow instructions. So I could just recall a simple scenario wherein we were giving instructions to a few of the candidates to take online assessments and told the candidates to start a particular time. There was a particular candidate who has started earlier. Now, he's not following the instructions. Though his scores were good in that particular round, we did not consider him for the further rounds. The reason is very simple, because his ability to follow instructions is not up to the mark. And he becomes a liability, not an asset to any company. So you should be very keen on both these points. Listening does not mean that you passively hear. You should ask questions and get things clarified. But then definitely you should ensure that you have sufficient information at hand to follow the instructions without losing out on any of the points. And this is very key point which you need to keep in mind. Often I've found people not asking questions, not clarifying. So this would give a false impression that the incumbents have understood what is expected out of them. And please note, unless you ask questions and get things clarified, what will happen? There would still be room for ambiguity. Things would not be clear. So listening does not mean passively just hearing. You should be asking questions in case if you think that there is some misunderstanding or anomaly which can be corrected through asking clarifications. Moving on to the next point, status reporting. Often, we would be doing our activities. We would all be aligned towards meeting the goals. But the most important thing which needs to be kept in mind is status reporting. Without follow-ups from your immediate supervisors, you should be updating the status at regular intervals, or have the expectation set that you would be updating at so and so time, so that there's an alignment. Because often in the business scenarios, there would be quick requirements coming up, and there will be so many things which needs to be dealt with. So we call it VUCA. So volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity, and all those. And it is the responsibility of each and everyone in the organizational hierarchy, right from the boss, to ensure that the ambiguity is being reduced and clarity is being brought into the business at each level. So most importantly, as a new joiner, if you find that you are not clear with something, please ensure that you discuss with your immediate supervisors and get things sorted out. Keep in mind that these are same points which will also be helpful for you during your internship or your apprenticeship, because these are basic points which any boss would be expecting from their reportees or subordinates across the organizations, be it in an industry, be it in education sector, or anywhere businesses are being conducted. Ability to work with minimal supervision. And nobody would like to be micromanaged. There are situations wherein you would have to be, you may have to be micromanaged, and based on the criticality of the job. But then take it for granted that it is an extra pain for your boss. If they find that you are doing the needed activities without supervision, often they would definitely be delegating further benefits and rights to you by default, because they need not follow up with you. As I told you, if you are handling the first 5 points, then it implies that with minimal supervision you can proceed with your activities. The advantage this gives during these days is because in a virtual world, like an organizational setup, your boss cannot immediately come to you and check the status every now and then. And he probably would be tied up with 10 different things at the same time, which he needs to prioritize and address. So that is where, if you are sticking with these guidelines and then updating the status promptly, or assume that if there is no activity assigned to you, if you go back and check with him, as to what you need to do, or identify the alternative activities which you can, do, and then, discuss with him and prioritize, it will be much easier for your boss to align. So the same rule, golden rule applies when you are serving your internships also. Okay, moving on to transferable skills. Prior to that, I am not elaborating further on your core skills here, because I'm sure your educational curriculum would give you ample opportunities to brush up with each of the subjects. And majority of the curriculums of the engineering colleges are, having the diversification of these subjects. Probably now you may not be able to understand why you need to deal with so many subjects. Maybe probably your focus area might be on, say, statistics. You probably would have wanted a particular course on that area, or say, for example, applied engineering on, maybe thermal. Probably you would have wanted to only undertake the courses on that area. But then keep in mind, as I told you, once you enter the industry, there is a lot of ambiguity coming in. At that point in time, if you are not strong on your core skills, if you do not know which discipline and how best you need to utilize those areas which you have learned, it will become very difficult. Because the problems, the industry challenges does not come classified telling them, hey, this is the thermal problem for you. You are from thermal background. Now resolve me. They come in a mix, in a bag of a lot of other, issues and constraints. So your interdisciplinary background would definitely be helpful for tackling such kind of problems. I could give you a few examples from my limited experience. So one of the first projects which I had to handle in my career was digital mapping of a human being. So the way human being operates in a, say, a factory, we were trying to simulate it into a digital world. Now, your degree of freedom, I'm strictly, speaking with mechanical terms, your degree of freedom for each of your limbs vary. But then you need to know here that there is a biological, component also coming in. Because by default, if you put in, 3 degrees of freedom for each of your joints, then that would give you 9 degrees of freedom for your human, basic one hand, one limb, which is not real unless you know that biologically your hand is constrained. You cannot, move it in few areas. Just giving you a quick example of the implication between, mechanical engineering and, biology here. There are a lot of other, such scenarios which I have, come across in my career, where we had to, work on diversity, projects. Say, for example, supply chain projects on inventory obsolescence, on demand planning, and unless you have a background on these core skills on various disciplines, it becomes very difficult for you to correlate and try to solve these problems at that time. Again, as I told you, at that time, if you expect, oh no, I'm going to take this up, this is a challenging activity, and then if you don't have the skills, no industry is going to give you sufficient time to, prep up that particular technology and then address it. This is tying back to my previous, slides where I've told you that you need to have the ability to quickly grasp, that is, proven ability to learn and adapt. So you'll have to quickly learn and then adapt to the emerging, scenarios. Keep in mind, there is both divergence of technologies happening and convergence of technologies happening. Divergences wherein mechanical engineering probably would also have to be taken hand in hand with electronics and IT related areas. I'm referring to mechatronics and a lot of other emerging trends. On the other side, you do have convergence, wherein, say, you are doing a niche study on, say, MEMS, mechanical systems, or probably a niche study on a particular, nuclear power plant, setup. In fact, recently, the US have, floated the tender asking for private sectors to come up with viable proposals to start nuclear plants, commission nuclear plants in the moon, on the moon. So there are a lot of disciplinaries which you need to bring forth, put on table, and then come up with these kind of real life industry proposals. At that point in time, it will be very difficult for you to go back and check your basics if you are not doing it now. Of course, you might be under the impression that if we do it practically, it would be easier for us. Theoretically, it might be difficult. Let me tell you, 50% theory, 50% practicals would be the ideal situation. Without theory, if you are following practicals, you are only going to copy paste in the real world. So it's only going to be plagiarism. You would not know why you are doing so. And without practice, if you learn it theoretically, naturally you are not fit for the industry. So that's the reason why I said there has to be a balance on both these areas. So again, we have quickly covered these three topics. That is the focus on your core skills. There might be some disciplinary, disciplines which is there as a part of your curriculum. Might be probability, might be probably say basic finance management or any specific electives. Could be AI, which you might not be able to directly connect with right away. But take it from me, if you do not like a subject, put in additional effort into that, such that you have a underlying a basic understanding of it, and that you don't need to go back to it again and again. Put in your best such that you can give 100%, and that first time itself you can clear your papers. Reason why I'm again trusting this point is at your levels you might still be confused, and probably you would have this mental frame that I want to be so and so in this field. Might be viable for now, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it may not be there as a for relevant industries. We will not see typewriters these days. It has all been replaced by computers. We do not see stenography much. So this cyclic change always happen anywhere between 5 to 10 years. Now the timelines are getting shorter. You could see this happening between 2 to 3 years. So that's one of the reasons why I was trusting on continuous learning. So coming back to what I wanted to take you through, transferable skills or portable skills. We are focusing on few skills which helps you move your jobs irrespective of what your background is. We have seen scenarios wherein somebody has done mechanical engineering and probably might be coming up with a company probably in the food industry, or maybe somebody would have done electronics engineering and might be probably working in the IT industry. Prima facie, first time when you look into it seems to be not correct. But the reason why they have been able to cope up is because of these transferable skills. And this is something which you need to keep in mind. The first one being time management. I believe it is almost an hour since we started. So since we are at time management, I thought, is it okay for me to take another 10-15 minutes and continue?
Of course, sir. Yes, please.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. So coming back to time management, an important skill set which you need to keep in mind. And this is required for each of the levels. When you are, say, you are joined as an apprentice or a graduate engineer training, there would be times when your boss would be asking you to do something and would definitely be asking you, how much time do you need? When can you deliver this? And if you do not have a visibility of time, if you go back and tell them every now and then that I will have to try or I may have to, see, it's perfectly acceptable for the first couple of times. But then you should have come up with mechanisms to manage time. There is a critical skill set. So I would suggest keep these in mind, and these are all generic skill sets. So if you find that if there is a BSc graduate and if you are from the engineering background, the BSc graduate is probably doing much better on these areas, he probably will be moving up the ladder. So that is the reason why I'm still highlighting on these, apart from your core skills, which we have already discussed. Next is teamwork. Often you will be working in teams. Now, invariably, even if you are the boss leading the team, you should still be in a position to motivate your team to ensure that there is a common goal which you are all trying to achieve together. Teamwork is a great transferable skill. This is one of the reasons why you see probably somebody is from an electrical background, who's leading so and so company. He has moved on to another company. Probably this time it is a aviation background company or another company. He's still able to lead that company at a senior level. It is because of his ability to take others as a team, to pursue goals jointly and ensure that they are meeting the goals on time. Managing the success factors. So teamwork is a transferable skill, irrespective of what your domains are. Leadership is another skill, which I've just given you an example. Personal motivation, most important. You will have to motivate yourself, because then and only then you will be able to motivate others. Especially in times like these, when everybody is working remotely, as a leader, if you do not find time to connect with them, to understand and see what the challenges are and motivate them, it becomes difficult. And how do you do this if you are not able to motivate yourself? So, a very important point which you need to keep in mind: you will have to, self-motivate. You should have your source of energy, your source of references. It can be a person, it can be a book, it can be an article, whichever it is, which constantly gives you energy, the drive to move forward. So, the personal motivation is very key, very important. Listening skills, again, we have covered this earlier. I'm not highlighting or thrusting this much, but a very important skill. Written and verbal skills, I've already told you how this is transferable. There are a few mechanical engineers whom I'm aware of who have moved on to a few other areas like documentation. Classic example is the aviation industry. There will be a lot of technical documentation which is required, and you cannot expect somebody from another background to do these. You need somebody from mechanical background to do this. And imagine if your written skills are not good, how do you do it? You are losing out on the job opportunity. I'm aware of a lot of colleagues who have moved to other countries, predominantly because of their verbal skills also. So there are scenarios wherein one of the candidates did not get a job at all for a couple of years. He went ahead and joined BPO. So BPO sector, they train your voice modulation, your language, grammar, and all this. Within 2 years, he did not get a job in the core area at all. After that, he was working in the BPO industry, and during this time frame, his verbal skills improved. Then, fortunately, he got a job from a mechanical background company. Again, it is not purely mechanical; it is IT-related, mechanical service-based company. And right now, since all things fell in place, he is working abroad, thanks to his verbal skills. So you need to keep in mind, you do not know during your days in college that which of these skills would be having a higher impact, and all of them play a role at one level or the other to a greater extent. But you may not be able to directly understand this relationship currently. So just giving you a further indication why these skills are very, very important. Information technology. You might be from mechanical background, civil background, whichever be your background is. IT has already infused into almost all these areas. And there will be certain areas which somebody from computer science background or information technology background would not be able to quickly get into. So for example, if there is a software which is particularly used in the mechanical industry, I'm not just referring to your CAD/CAM or PLM solutions. It could be also, other solutions like your SAP material management modules and all, say plant maintenance modules and all those. So I'm not denying that somebody from computer science background or any other background cannot come into this. It's possible as long as they put in that additional effort and try to understand the domain. But somebody from mechanical science, mechanical engineering background can easily fill in these fields, provided they have understanding of the information technology what is required. And as I said, the other areas are also very good. Organization skills. Again, how do I further thrust this further? As a leader or even a team member, assume that if your desk is completely scattered, you do not know where to go, what to fetch. it becomes difficult for you to, order yourself to meet your own timelines. So organization skills, time management, and few other points are directly linked, but I would still consider it as a different skill. When you plan your activities, you see how best you can meet your timelines, what needs to be done. So planning an organization is extremely important. When you understand the dependencies, the risks, and see how best you can mitigate it on whatever you are, working on. Numerical skills. Again, I could just give you a quick example. So it so happened that one of my earlier companies, the new boss had joined, and he was conducting a meeting, and I was, just entering the room. So the operations head was giving few data points, and he mentioned around, say, maybe out of 14 people probably will be doing these activities and so on and so forth. So the business leader immediately asked, so what would be the percentage? And again, they were, of course, expecting everybody to go through the calculators and then do the math and then see what exactly it is going to be. Fortunately, I knew that it is very simple. 1 by 7 is nothing but 14.285%. I recall that number. The reason being, it's a very beautiful number. Because if you just do 1 by 7, then 1 by 14, 1 by 28, and see the values, you will identify the patterns very easily. What exactly or how exactly these values will move. So, I mean, what happened is it is not that you're doing this in a focused manner. It just becomes a practice when you start following few things. So what happens is then you get noticed automatically. Of course, other managers would have thought that, hey, he's trying to act smart. The point was, the moment those values were thrown in front of me, immediately the next response had already popped up in my mind, and that is the reason why I was able to address those kind of questions. Business needs people who can quickly come up with results. And not more than 8 months, I got promoted to my next role. So this is just one example which I told you. Incidentally, recently we have Shakuntala Devi's movie being released yesterday. I'm not expecting you to be a great mathematician. I'm not mentioning you not to pursue maths also, if that is your passionate area and focus area. The point is, you can make mistakes when you are trying to build any of these skill sets safely during these time frames when you are in the college. That's the best part which I wanted to highlight. Because once you are in the business stream, things change. You will be observed for each and every action. But right now, when you are in your comfort zone, be it in your college or these beautiful years which you have along with your colleagues, it is okay to make mistakes because you are still falling into a cushion. Nobody is going to fire you from your job. Okay, so utilize that benefit to the maximum possible extent. See how best you can improve on your skill sets. Research and analytical skills, very important, because these days data is in front of everybody. Anybody can access the system, and this is going to be even more challenging for you because you have kids accessing the devices right away. So thanks to COVID, so they will be able to access the data points, whatever you are mentioning, almost at real time and give you the results. So research and analytical skills is equally important, where given a short time frame and a particular objective or a goal, you identify what are the key data points which you need to look into, what is the sufficiency for the data which you have to analyze, and then see under what assumptions and governing principles you can come up with the relevant data set which would give you information on your results. Again, it is a complicated topic, going into optimization, data analytics, a lot of other streams and areas. And there will be a lot of opportunities coming up from the business world also if you have the skills. So no matter what your background is, if you have have these skills, it implies today probably you might be tackling an optimization problem, say for example, for transport-based company, say Uber. Tomorrow you might be doing it for another, company altogether. You wouldn't know. So this is what I'm referring to as the transferable skills, irrespective of what your background is, as long as you have owned these skills. Well, I have already highlighted on innovation, a very important point, because almost all the companies across all the domains, the focus and thrust is on innovation. How can you improve your top lines and bottom lines? Top lines is your profit areas where you are increasing the sales. Bottom lines is wherein you are reducing your operating costs. So trying to see what you have been doing now, how better you can do it with the same input or lesser input. And this is only the incremental innovation which I have spoken to you about. There is disruptive innovation also happening. Again, different topic altogether, wherein you ensure the sustainability of your company by constantly innovating. Because few of the business models, in spite of those companies doing quite well, you do not see that company anymore. The reason being, disruptive innovation has happened, because of which those areas are no longer required. So yeah, this is something which is food for thought, where you could see from mechanical engineering standpoint, what are the areas wherein you would see such trend. I could give you one example, say paper industry. It is there, but then the amount of paper which we have been using is reducing drastically. So in a way, it is a dying industry, and unless and until there is innovation happening. So there are various other sectors also. So a quick overview on the transferable or portable skills with which you can move from one industry or job or career to another, as long as you have these skills. That brings us to our last point on personal development. As I told you, continuously we will have to focus on improving ourselves, and this is how it is going to be going forward. So welcome to the new age. Nowhere can anybody guarantee you that if you do one course, one degree for the next 10, 15 years, your job is going to be safe. You will have to constantly learn, both as a part of your on-the-job activities, as well as outside your job, to ensure that you remain relevant and you add value to business. And moving on to trends. A couple of things here. So we know this work from home is one trend. There will be more contract jobs than permanent jobs, because there is so much of ambiguity in the business. If you're looking for maybe another 30-year career in science industry, please take it for granted that things would not fall in place as smoothly. But already this change has happened. Even government organizations, they are curtailing the roles and trying to see whether they can replace it with contract-based jobs. So this is another trend which you can see going forward. Multi-skilling, I have already discussed this point earlier. Flexibility and agility is very important. As I told you, as a recruiter, if you have not put in those additional effort to prep up yourself on those areas, then no interview would be buying it. I recently, not recently, in fact, a couple of months before, conducted an interview in one of the colleges, and majority of the graduates have done one or the other project on artificial intelligence. But then the job description, what we were looking into, was not directly aligned. And when we were looking at the fundamentals, their fundamentals were very weak. What I mean to say is, if you look on advanced topics without having sound fundamentals, then it would become very difficult for you to survive in the industry. The reason being, you probably will have a diversified approach, but there is no sufficient depth. So please ensure that you focus on your core skills and build on top of it additional skills. So you have to be very flexible and agile. And I would suggest probably you'll have to start learning with what, or rather how you should learn in a smart manner before learning exactly the content what you are learning. So that you can improve agility in this area. Just a quick thought which came up to my, in my mind when I was, preparing this deck. You could, check for Spencer Johnson's book, Who Moved My Cheese, which is articulating about adapting, how you adapt to new situations. A very good story, and I can promise you a good read. If you're going through this very short book, you should be able to complete in a couple of days. Well, moving on back to our point on the trends, robotics and automation is definitely going to be there, because now the industry has seen what implications are if this kind of a disruption happens, where you can't have people reaching the office, especially wherein personal that is man power is required. There will be high chances of automation being kickstarted. Earlier, we had automation mainly to reduce the dull, dirty, and dry or boring jobs, and also to improve the bottom lines. But now this is more of a business risk, because you do not know when the next lockdowns are going to come down, or God forbid, whatever reasons are. If that happens, how do you ensure that your business works? This is what almost all the entrepreneurs and the leaders are thinking. So there would definitely be further avenues for robotics and automation. Industrial Internet of Things. I'm quickly going through my next few slides. We can deliberate on points which we have not covered earlier. Industry 4.0 is a combination of various IT-driven technologies which is coming up. So this is the next level of industry revolution, wherein you have IoT, cloud, you have your AR, VR, everything joining, and then combining to Industry 4.0, which you should be aware of as a graduate, because by the time you reach the industry, this would have materialized and would be the norm. Work 4.0, again, ways in which you operate with digitization, a combination of robots working on your systems, and then human beings looking into a few areas where human involvement is really required, where few decision making is required. Otherwise, you'll have the basic human activities getting automated. So again, as we discussed about remote working and all those, that is what 4.0 is all about. A beautiful concept, everything as a service, XaaS. I'll just quickly take you through a few of these points. This is not an exhaustive list. There are so many items here. So yeah, design as a service, communication as a service, security as a service, health, transportation, manufacturing as a service. It all started with the cloud coming up. We had infrastructure as a service, then platform as a service, software as a service. Now, if I need to communicate with you, I'm not buying Zoom. I'm only, getting into a particular link and then, interacting with you. I'm not buying, Zoom software, installing it on my system, and then interacting with you. Similarly, if I'm just, taking a quick example on transportation as a service, if I need to commute, if I need to travel from one place to another place, I don't need to buy a car. I'm not sure if it is relevant across our country, but at least in majority of the cities, we have services like Uber, Ola, where you can book in an app, and then your commute is taken care of. So these digitized applications take care of your transportation needs. Moving now on to manufacturing as a service. See, the investment which is required in the manufacturing industry is very huge. So just to take an example of a semiconductor industry, if you need to start up, it might be probably $6 billion in developed countries. 6 billion. Now in India probably it might be lesser, but still probably would be millions. How can you start a company when you do not have sufficient input coming in, when there is a lot of ambiguity? That is where this manufacturing as a service concept has come up. Well, it's like old wine in new bottle. You had these concepts earlier also. In the olden days, what do? We have either rice or wheat being taken to the miller. The miller pounds it and gives you rice. So they separate the grain, and then they give you the pounded rice. And for that, they take some amount of rice as the payment. More or less like a barter system, not exactly a barter system, but here the service is what is being bartered, and you are giving them some rice powder. In similar lines, in the manufacturing situation, now what is happening is that you have a platform wherein, assume that if I'm owning a manufacturing setup and I've got a big requirement, now I cannot quickly scale to get sufficient, raw materials. But as manufacturing as a service, I have an option where I can go into a portal, into a web-based application, and giving my details, telling that I need so and so products. These products might be manufactured in different locations, and based on the turnaround times, the respective network manufacturers will ensure that I'm getting these products on time. It's an interesting concept which is emerging. The first point which I mentioned, Prema, is a body which is trying out these. It's a joint project mentioned, in fact, by a few of the European-based companies. You do have Chisel in India. There are a lot of other players also in this field. Where how can you offer manufacturing itself as a service? Tie this point back to the earlier slides, which I showed you on why and how the service industry is increasing. Going forward also, you can see this, and this implies that if you are focusing on core alone, probably your opportunities might be limited. You are focusing on only your core subjects and not, giving you, importance to the other subjects. Again, your opportunities would be limited, because this is the trend which is, clearly emerging in the business. Well, coming back to the main focus areas, I'm sure a lot of other webinars have already happened, and you would have got sufficient insight through other eminent speakers. So I'm not taking much on these areas. Development, design and development, I hope you are aware of. Research and development, again, taking back this to innovation, very important aspect of any manufacturing setup or industry. Production operations and manufacturing, they run your industry. So this is your maintenance team who would be keeping everything up. Quality, I again gave a highlight on this point, why you should focus on this. Reason being, then and only then we can be a superpower in the field of manufacturing, because otherwise indigenously we might be able to still survive, because now the reversal of globalization is happening, indigenization is happening. But then once you have sufficient capability in terms of meeting your domestic needs, you cannot expand and export these products further if your quality is not up to the mark. Very important, especially in export industries to European countries and other countries. In textile industries, if they do not meet the quality standards, the shipped products will have to be literally burnt. You cannot even send it back. So, or rather, the cost of sending it back would be too high that you will have to burn the clothes, because you cannot just put into the sea, because that will create an environment impact. Again, green manufacturing is another topic, just to keep you posted that how in a eco-friendly, environment-friendly manner you can come up with products. Automotive industry would be great benefactor if you have such ideas and thoughts. Renewable energy is another point. There are a lot of areas, in fact, sales and marketing. I've seen a lot of mechanical engineers moving on to sales and marketing areas, because there are a lot of products, mechanical products, which needs some amount of technical expertise to sell these products. IT-enabled services, CAD, CAM, PLM, IoT, that is industrial Internet of Technologies, AR, VR, augmented reality, and virtual reality. I would call it immersion reality these days. You have entrepreneurship coming up again. You have education sector, which is also going through a lot of changes. So I've just quickly given you a nutshell. There are variances between private sector, public sector, whether you take these within our country alone, whether you should take it outside, abroad. And I believe the whole world is open for you. You'll have to explore and see where the opportunities are. With that, I would also suggest learn a foreign language, with German, Japanese, whichever it is, so that you could explore those markets, study, learn, probably during your early stages of your career, explore, work in those areas, have a better understanding inside, and then come back to India and probably start something which is much better and gives much employment opportunities to others. Manufacturing as a service, I've just covered in my previous slide about how you can extend the services. A good correlation here would be the way food you can order it online. So how you can enable your manufacturing or mechanical services where others can order it online. Well, that said, this is the last slide. Most importantly, as I earlier mentioned, all engineers are problem solvers, and there's no dearth for problems awaiting for your attention to fix them, which means the future is definitely bright. The problems may not be same, it might be in different formats. Keep a note of it, keep your eyes open. Well, that brings us to the end of this session. I'm open for question and answer session. You can ask anything which I have not covered in the slide. I will try to answer it to the best of my limited expertise on those areas. Said that I would like to thank each and every one of you who have taken time to join us in this webinar on behalf of Universal Engineering College. And once again, let me thank the faculty members of Universal Engineering College for providing me this opportunity. Thank you.
Hello, sir. Yes, thanks a lot. Can we quickly move on to the question answer session?
Please.
Because we have another session to at 12.
Sure.
Yeah, we have 4 questions. Can you see that in the Q&A?
Just a second.
Or shall I read it out for you? We have
It would be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah,
because then
sure.
I can go to the
Okay.
slides.
Yeah, we have a question from Rahit. He asked, due to the COVID-19 situation, what about the condition of freshers in future?
Wonderful. Was it Rahul? Sorry, what is it?
Rahit.
Rahit, is it? Okay. Hi, Rahit. Good question. Well, my whole topic was with respect to that. I've given you various points also. Let me just quickly take you through a few of them. Okay, just a moment. So right from the starting points, as I mentioned, there would be, certain cuts in the job for your traditional industries, because overall, things are emerging and evolving. But then definitely freshers would be required. And there are a lot of areas wherein you will have to improve on your the skills which I told you, the transferable skills which I had intimated you earlier. Let me go through the earlier slides to quickly Yeah, so please keep note of these key skills which you need to have: problem solving, then ability to learn quickly and adapt to the respective industry, your verbal and written communication, listening ability, status reporting, apart from the core skills. And definitely there will be more opportunities, because though COVID is there currently, it is going to be treated. There will be humongous opportunities, as I've taken you through a few of the earlier slides, with respect to the Indian context as well as the global context. So coming back to your question, there would be opportunities. It's not a question of the opportunities, more of how you adapt to those and grab those opportunities, which is more important. Ashwini, have I answered that question, or is there any other additional questions on that point?
Yes, we have just one more relevant question.
Yes,
What are the how to score in an interview that comes after post-COVID? Because of course there will be question related to how you spend your time in COVID, especially for the students who are passing out just now. So how do you answer that smartly?
wonderful. So you will have to answer this on 3 different areas, as I would intimate you. First is on how you have improved on your core skills. See, I would suggest focus on your passionate areas. If you are, passionate about automotive, then if you go to metallurgy or any other, industry, probably you may not be happy with you. There would be dissonance. Rather, it is better that you focus on your, areas which you are passionate about. Maybe immediately you may not get a job in that area. It might probably take a while. As I told you, the example of a colleague whom I am aware of, who first got into a BPO sector, improved his verbal skills, used that as an opportunity to improve himself. Subsequently, when he moved on to the mechanical stream, he got a much better, job. So what comes, in your way, grab that opportunity, see how best you can utilize that opportunity to improve yourself. Again, as I told you, 3 areas to focus. First is on your core areas. What is your focus areas? See, during my college days, I was passionate about robotics. I wanted to pursue something in that line, and I was fortunate enough to get an opening in that area because of other transferable skills also. It was not just because I learned only the core subject on robotics and flexible manufacturing systems that I landed a job. So said that there will be a gap between your curriculum as well as what the industry demands. At least 3 to 5 years of gap is there. The reason being, say I understand that there is a course on digital manufacturing in your curriculum. That is something which I had done almost a decade back. That time there were no such courses at all. So there will be a gap because there is constant research and innovation going on, and all these material would be added after fine tuning and proper curating, and this needs time. So that is the reason why there is a gap between what you study and what is expected out in the industry. But there are a lot of ways, as I said, Coursera, then Udemy, TEDx, online courses which you could take, and these are not highly priced courses also. So improve your skills on the respective areas, the topics which you want to cover. Improve on your transferable skills. Identify what skills you need to differentiate in the market and stand, apart. That is what is going to help you score in your interviews, and how you can present, mentioning how you have utilized your time effectively. Because that's the best way of looking at it. You may not probably quickly be getting a job immediately after you pass out, but whatever time frame it is, can be a week, can be a month, can be 3 months, can be a year. How you have put in that time, what you have done, what skills you have improved. Transferable skill list, which I have just shown you, is a good example where you can go back and say that, hey, I have improved on these areas, and along with this, these are the other 4 areas which I have improved myself on, which will definitely help you land a job on a lot of areas. Yes, Ashwini, any other questions?
No, sir. We don't have any more questions in the question answer session. I am so happy and privileged to thank an alumnus of my own college. I too passed out from the Government Engineering College. So very happy and proud to thank you. And also I like the theory of the walls and escalators. Like often in each stage of our life, we think, okay, this is my escalator and I'm going to end up there. But we see that life is a continuous, like it's just continuing walls and escalators throughout. The students of this generation should know that, because we are all experienced, right? We thought 10th was the biggest, 12th was the biggest, but it never ends. And also, could you please share that slide which had the skills required for the pass outs? I think I should be keeping a screenshot of the same. That is something that teachers need to incorporate in the daily lessons more than the technical skills, I believe. The one with the skills for pass outs.
Okay, okay, this is the one, I guess. Is it visible now?
Yes, yes.
Right.
Let me just take a screenshot of the same.
Sure.
Okay. I should be teaching this more than their subjects. Okay. Yeah. So once again, thank you, Mr. Arun Ashok, for your valuable time with us on behalf of the whole of Mechanical Engineering Department of Universal Engineering College. Thanks a lot. See you again. Bye. Thank you.
And thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.